Pigs squeal. They're everywhere. Semi-feral, the city's roaming garbage disposes. Music, a street crier bellows, advertising eels, or cloth or candles. Wooden cartwheels groan through the muck. The driver cursing. A hammer rings on an anvil. Dogs bark. Music, voices everywhere layered, echoing off the close-packed walls. This is not a quiet world. There is no quiet world when everyone lives in everyone else's hearing. This is England in the 1200s. This is daily life, not a catastrophe, not a plague year or a siege. This is normal. Stand at the entrance to a narrow street. Let your eyes adjust to the gloom. The overhanging buildings block most of the light. What reaches the ground is grey, filtered, inadequate. The street itself is perhaps 10 feet wide, sometimes less. The buildings are timber-framed, wattle and daub filling the gaps. The wood dark with age and smoke. The ground floor opens directly onto the street. A workshop here, a shop there, a doorway leading into domestic space. Watch the traffic. A man guides an ox pulling a cart loaded with barrels. The animal's hooves sink into the muck with each step, making a wet sucking sound as they pull free. The cart's wheels carve deep ruts. Behind the ox, a woman picks her way along the edge of the street, one hand lifting her skirt, the other pressed against the wall for balance. She's wearing pattens, wooden platforms strapped to her shoes, lifting her a few inches above the filth. They clack against the occasional stone embedded in the mud. A boy runs past barefoot, splashing through a puddle that's more liquid waste than water. He doesn't slow down. His feet are black to the ankle. Notice the central kennel. It's perhaps a foot wide, sometimes a bit more. Everything flows into it. From a butcher's stall, blood music runs in a thin stream, bright red, turning brown as it mixes with the muck. From a house, a woman appears at a window on the second floor. She's holding a wooden bucket. She shouts, "Gard-loo!" and tips the contents into the street below. Liquid waste, the contents of a chamber pot, splashes onto the ground. Some of it reaches the kennel. Most of it doesn't. It sits in a spreading pool until feet and hooves and wheels disperse it into the general matrix music of the street. This happens constantly. Every household multiple times a day. There is no other system. Move to a different street. One where the trades cluster. The smell changes. Music, it becomes dominated by a single source. Here, a tannery. The stench is overwhelming, a physical presence. Hides are stretched on frames in an open yard. Vats sit in the music ground, filled with a brown liquid. Urine collected from public latrines and sold to the tanner, mixed with dog dung. The hides soak in this for days. The process turns skin into leather. It also produces a smell so powerful that tanneries are supposed to music be located on the edge of town, downwind. This one isn't. Most aren't. Enforcement is inconsistent. Next to the tannery, a bakery. The contrast is absurd. Bread bakes 20 feet from fermenting hides. The baker's apprentice carries loaves out to the street where they're displayed on a board. Flies land on them. The apprentice waves them away. They return. Walk further. A dyer's workshop. The ground outside is stained brilliant colors: blues, reds, yellows, where wastewater has been thrown into the street. The chemicals used to fix the dyes are caustic. Your eyes water as you pass. The runoff doesn't stay in the street. It flows downhill following the kennels until it reaches a stream or river. The water there runs strange colors. Fish die. People still draw water from it. The animal population is as dense as the human one. Horses and oxen are the engines of transport and labor. They produce dung continuously, adding it to the street wherever they happen to be standing. It's not considered waste. It's a resource if someone wants to collect it for fertilizer. Mostly, no one does. It becomes part of the street surface, mixed with the mud and everything else. Pigs are a different problem. They're not owned in any formal sense. They belong to households but roam freely scavenging. They eat the refuse, the food waste, the organic matter that would otherwise simply pile up. In this sense, they're useful, even essential. They're also dangerous. They're aggressive. They knock people over. They bite children. Laws are passed again and again to control them. Pigs must be music kept penned. Pigs found loose will be killed. But the laws fail. There are too many pigs and no alternative disposal system for music, the garbage they eat. The street is not a designed space. It's an emergent one, shaped by 1,000 individual actions that no one coordinates. Every household contributes waste. Every trade produces byproducts. Every animal adds music dung. The result is a living surface, constantly replenished, that no one fully controls. At night, the problem magnifies. There are no music street lights, no torches maintained by the city. If you go out after dark, you carry music, your own light, or you move by memory and feel. The street becomes invisible. The kennels become traps. Coroner's records document the deaths. A man, drunk, falls into a ditch and drowns in 2 feet of liquid filth. A woman unfamiliar with the neighborhood steps into an open cesspit and cannot climb out. These are not rare events. The darkness turns the street into a lethal space. The filth has sources. Trace them. Begin with the household. A timber frame building. 3 stories. The ground floor a workshop. The upper floors domestic. A family of 6 lives here. They produce waste every day. Food scraps. Broken pottery. Ash from the hearth. The contents of the chamber pot. None of it stays inside. The chamber pot empties from the window. Sometimes with warning, sometimes without. The contents hit the street, splash against the wall, pool in the uneven ground. If there's a cesspit in the yard behind the house, it receives some of the waste. Most houses don't have one. Most yards are too small. The cesspit, where it exists, is a hole lined with stone or timber. Sometimes neither. It fills. Eventually, it overflows or seeps into the ground. The liquid drains into the soil, into the neighbor's well, into the water table beneath the town. When the cesspit is full, someone has to empty it. This is the work of the gong farmer, a man who does the job no one else will touch. He comes at night. He digs out the solid waste, loads it into barrels, carts it to the music edge of town or to a designated midden. The smell marks his route. The pay is higher than most labor. It has to be. Not every household can afford a gong farmer. For many, the street is the cesspit. Move to the butcher. His stall opens onto the street. Behind him, carcasses hang from hooks. The floor is slick with blood. He works in full view, slitting throats, peeling hides, separating meat from bone. The blood doesn't stay on his cutting block. It runs onto the floor, flows out the door, into the kennel. On a busy day, the kennel runs red for hours. The offal goes into a pile: guts, hooves, scraps of fat, and sinew. Some of it will be sold. Music intestines for sausage casings, bones for glue, hides for the tanner. The rest sits until someone hauls it away, or dogs tear into it. Flies swarm. The smell is immediate, heavy, organic. The butcher is not violating any expectation. This is how music the work is done. The alternative, slaughtering animals in a central location away from the selling point, requires infrastructure that doesn't exist. So the killing happens here, in the commercial heart of town, and the waste becomes part of the street. Now, the music tanner. He takes the hides the butcher sells. They arrive stiff, covered in blood and hair. His job is to transform them into leather. The process requires soaking the hides in a solution strong enough to break down the hair and preserve the skin. The solution is urine and dung. Public latrines collect urine. It's a commodity. The tanner buys it by the barrel. He mixes it with dog dung in large vats sunk into the ground. The hides go in. They soak for days, sometimes weeks. The smell is ammonia, decay, something acid and wrong. It doesn't disperse. It saturates the air in a radius that extends several streets. When the hides come out, they're rinsed. The wastewater, brown, thick, chemical, goes into the street. It flows into the kennel, follows the slope, empties into the nearest stream. The tanner's waste joins the dyer's music waste, the butcher's waste, the household waste. The water downstream carries all of it. The dyer's process is different, but equally toxic. He works with mordants, alum, iron, and lye to fix color into cloth. The dye itself comes from plants, insects, and minerals: woad for blue, madder for red. Music. The chemicals turn fabric bright, permanent, valuable. They also turn the wastewater into something caustic. He dumps it in the street. There's nowhere else for it to go. The ground outside his workshop is stained in layers, a palimpsest music of discarded color. The runoff eats into timber, corrodes metal, kills anything growing nearby. Music. It flows downhill with everything else. The animals add their share without pause. Horses pull carts through the street. Oxen haul plows to the fields outside town. Donkeys carry goods to market. They all defecate where they stand. No one collects it immediately. It piles up, gets trampled, mixes with the mud. In dry weather, it hardens into layers. In rain, it dissolves into slurry. The pigs are the cleanup crew. They eat the organic refuse, vegetable peelings, spoiled bread, scraps of meat too rotten for humans. They root through the muck, reducing music the volume of waste by converting it into pig. This makes them valuable. It also makes them filthy, aggressive, music, and impossible to control. Laws attempt control. Pigs must be ringed so they can't root. Pigs found in the street music will be confiscated. Owners will be fined. The laws pass. The pigs remain. The fines go unpaid. The town needs the pigs more than it can afford to enforce the rules. Every source feeds into the same system: the street. The street is drain, dump, and public space simultaneously. It receives the output of 1,000 actions and offers no processing, no removal, no transformation. It simply accumulates. The kennel moves some of the liquid waste downhill, but slowly, incompletely. Solid waste stays. The street becomes an archaeological site in real time, layering today's refuse on yesterday's, building up a surface that is part earth, part dung, part decomposed organic matter. This is not a failure of knowledge. People understand cause and effect. They know waste smells. They know certain smells accompany sickness. They associate standing water with fever. They recognize that some streets are fouler music than others and avoid them when possible. But understanding doesn't create solutions. Solutions require infrastructure, coordination, and resources that don't exist at scale. So the waste remains. The household dumps from the window. The butcher drains blood into the kennel. The tanner soaks hides in urine. The dyer pours chemicals into the street. The animals defecate without cease. And the street accepts it all, a surface perpetually renewed by the overflow of urban life. You need to cross town. The market is 6 streets away. The journey begins. Step into the street. Your first decision is where to place your foot. The center is worst. The kennel runs there, a slow-moving channel of liquid waste collecting runoff from every door and alley. The edges are marginally better, but only music marginally. The ground is uneven, rutted by cartwheels, pocked with depressions that fill with standing music water. Not clean water. You're wearing pattens. The wooden platforms strap over your everyday shoes, lifting your soles 3 inches above the surface. They're clumsy. They throw off your balance. But without them, your feet sink into the muck with every step, and the hem of your clothing drags through waste. The pattens clack against the occasional stone. Someone's attempt to create a path. A single flat rock pressed into the mud. You step music from stone to stone when you can find them. The rhythm is stop, scan, step. Never automatic. Always deliberate. A cart approaches from the opposite direction. The street is too narrow for both of you. You press against the wall of the nearest building, feeling the damp timber music against your shoulder. The ox passes close enough to touch. Its flank is crusted with dried mud and dung. The cartwheel gouges a fresh rut inches from your feet, spraying muck music onto your pattens. The driver doesn't look at you. This happens 100 times a day. You continue ahead. Music. A woman has stopped, one hand braced against a door frame. She's shaking her foot, trying to music dislodge something stuck to her shoe. She's not wearing pattens. Her shoes are leather, now black with filth. She gives up and keeps walking. Her footprints leave dark impressions. Observe the others navigating the same space. A merchant moves quickly, eyes down, lifting his robes with both hands. His pattens are well made, the platforms thick. He can afford to replace them when they rot. A child, barefoot, runs past without hesitation. His feet have developed calluses thick enough that the muck doesn't slow him. A servant carries a basket on her head, both hands steadying it, stepping carefully but without the visible anxiety of someone unused to this. She knows every stone, every safe spot, every place where the ground is slightly more solid. Turn down a side street narrower, darker. The overhanging buildings nearly touch overhead. The kennel here has backed up, something blocking the flow further down. The liquid waste has spread across the width of the street, turning the entire surface into a shallow, stinking music pool. You have 3 options: wade through, backtrack and find another route, or wait and hope the blockage clears. You see someone ahead choosing the first option. He steps in. The liquid reaches mid-calf. He grimaces, but doesn't music stop. His pattens are useless now. You choose the second option. Backtrack. The new route takes music you past the butcher's stalls. Blood has run from the cutting blocks into the kennel, but some has pooled in the depression just outside the nearest stall. The pool is wide enough that you can't step over it. You pause. Another person approaches from the opposite direction, faces the same problem, and chooses to step through. His pattern comes down in the center of the pool. Blood and liquid waste spray upward. He keeps moving. You wait for the splash to settle, then follow the same path. Cross an intersection. Here, the street widens slightly, a market space cleared for stalls. The ground is still unpaved, still mud and waste, but the foot traffic is heavier, which paradoxically music makes it slightly more navigable. The constant passage of people and carts has compacted music the surface, pressed it into something almost solid. Almost. A vendor has spread a piece of canvas on the ground, displaying tools for sale. The canvas sits directly in the muck. The tools are clean. The vendor sits on a low stool, his feet elevated on a plank. He doesn't make eye contact. You're not buying. Continue toward the market. The smell shifts. Less concentrated waste. More smoke and food. You're approaching music the baker's street. The contrast is sharp. Ovens radiate heat. Loaves sit on boards in the open air. And 10 feet away, a pig roots through a pile of refuse, its snout black with filth. You've traveled 6 streets. Your pattens are coded. The hem of your clothing, despite your efforts, has dragged through something you don't want to identify. Your hands are filthy from bracing against walls. This was a routine errand in daylight. Now imagine the same journey at night. No moon. No street lights. No municipal torches. If you go out after dark, you carry your own light, a candle lantern if you can afford it. Nothing if you can't. The candle illuminates perhaps 3 feet ahead. Beyond that, darkness. The street you walked in daylight becomes unrecognizable. The stones you used as stepping points vanish. The kennels become invisible trenches. The depressions filled with standing waste offer no warning. You move by memory, by touch, by luck. Coroner's rolls record what happens when luck fails. A man leaves music a tavern after drinking, attempts to walk home, missteps, falls into a ditch filled with liquid waste. He's found the next morning, face down, music drowned in 2 feet of filth. A woman unfamiliar with the neighborhood takes a wrong turn, steps into an open cesspit, a hole music perhaps 4 feet deep, stone-lined, filled with human waste. She cannot climb out. Her body is discovered 3 days later. These aren't rare entries. The rolls document them regularly across multiple towns, year after year. The night transforms the street from merely difficult to actively lethal. The same infrastructure that barely functions in daylight becomes a trap in darkness.